Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Victorious Friday by Victorious Family. Today, as I always say, we have special guests, and today is no exception. A good friend, and more importantly, a leader within her community. And today, we're going to talk about something very important. We're going to talk about leadership, but we're also going to talk about how to activate that via a plan. And what does that look like? And so we believe that when we look at planning, it's an essential to our personal development and growth, but also our family's growth. So today I have with me Diana and Kenoly. Diana, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and where you're from.
So my name is Diana Kenoly, and when protocol requires it, I serve as a United Nations ambassador at large, and I am based in Orlando, Florida right now. And I am passionate about leadership development and developing global leaders. And so that is the vein in which I serve at the United Nations at a global level and in my own business as a leadership development expert and trainer.
And you are from where originally?
So I am half Kenyan and half Ugandan. That's my ancestry, or that's where my mother and father and grandparents and great grandparents come from.
And what brought you to the United States?
Just life. So I went to university in the United Kingdom. I went to Warwick Business School, and I did a degree in accounting and finance. And for the most part, a lot of the work I did was in um, global operations management, IT development, and technology. And so that's my expertise. So I have been on a roundabout move when it comes to my experience.
And you mentioned that you had a passion for leadership.
Mhm.
What sparked that passion?
What sparked the passion? So it was in November of 2014. I was getting ready for the night, just to uh, turn down everything. And I just heard this voice ask me, when are you going to begin doing what I have called you to do? And I thought it was the most peculiar time of the night. And so I began listing everything that I thought I was doing and thinking to myself, what do you mean? And I heard the same voice again saying the exact same thing. And it reminded me of when Joseph appeared before the king. And he told the king, because God has said this thing twice, it will come to pass. And so I knew then that I needed to begin to think through what it is um, I have been uh, uh, designed for. And that's how I came to the John Maxwell team. And it was at that time that I was led to begin to think of how I can begin to develop myself as a leader. And it was a big thing for me to do because I had not seen myself in that vein. And you know how you just get so excited and you go and tell those that love you the most that this is what I'm going to do now, right? And three things were said to me. And I hope that it will help those that are listening to know that if you do get to experience what I experienced with all my enthusiasm, excitement, these were the three things that were said to me. Who have you led before? What do you know about leadership? And that would be a waste of money. So the two things there who I were absolutely the fact at the time. Okay, let me just put it that way. I had never led anybody before, and I didn't know much about leadership. But I knew enough to know that it was a worthwhile investment because I recognized that it was at that time that literally the Father was pulling me to come out and to be who He had, to begin to develop myself into what He had designed me for.
Oh, that's so good. And I want to jump into leadership here in a minute, but before I do, I want to stay on a personal topic just for a minute.
Okay.
I want to hear your story around your younger days when you were growing up.
Wow.
Tell me about your parent. Tell me about your family life. Tell me about as you were growing up, a young girl in Kenya and so forth, and dreams that you may have had. Just tell me about that life as a young person growing up.
So, a young girl. For most of my life, I think I can begin there. No, I'll begin it this way. So I was born in Mombasa, Kenya. My parents were together. I come from a family of 4 siblings. And everyone else is younger than me. So I was the one that everything was, tested on to see if if this would work or not. And then we then moved to Uganda, and my sister was then born there. And because my father was violent towards my mother had to determine to leave the relationship, and she had to leave. She was not going to leave us behind. So in those days, African culture, the children belong to the father. Okay. And so she was going to be pulling some really bold moves at this point. And it is a full circle moment for me because it was the United Nations that at the time my mom worked at the United Nations there. And it was because of them that we left, and we left in the nick of time. This was before the coup that had happened at that time. The president was President Obote, Obote. And so we left in the nick of time. So, and growing up, for 26 years of my life, I suffered with a severe speech impediment. And so joining the John Maxwell team for me was like, okay, God, so we're going to go here. I'm like, your child here does not do talking. So him bringing me to a place that would need me to develop myself in that capacity, if you like, was just something that I was like, you're really pulling me out. So that was my growing up. And then We then moved back to Nairobi, Kenya, went to school there, went to high school there, and then graduated high school and then went on to university in the United Kingdom. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that story to get to know you. I want our listeners to get to know your background.
Sure.
Let's go a little bit into transition into your adult life, and let's talk about this road of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And also we can touch on you, and we'll go to you in as well.
Sure.
When you think about leadership, how do you describe leadership?
Wow. I think someone who describes leadership the best is Brene Brown. She has got she has a definition of leadership that I want to share with the audience, or with your listeners, not with the audience. We're now in virtual world, that I think is the best definition for leadership that I can think of. Um, so I'm just gonna find it so that I am precise in my definitions. And this is what she says: a leader is anyone who takes responsibility for finding the potential in the individuals and processes, and who has the courage to develop that potential. So that's the definition for leadership or a leader for me.
So I want to take that definition and dissect it a little bit.
Okay, let's
And
go.
and as you look at, when you think about UN, when you think about the leadership, you're trying to have an impact on culture. And even a person we're familiar with says everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yes.
And we have certainly been challenged in this area of leadership, whether it be family, whether
Oh,
it
yeah.
be society, whether it be government, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you see leadership playing a role in all 10 mountains. And so
Yes.
talk a little bit about that and talk about the impact that you're designing to have in those 10 mountains, but specifically around the family, if you would.
Sure thing. So for me, the real definition into the work that I have been doing came about in January 2018. And actually, it was December 2017. I take the last month of every year to think into the next year, to look back and to review, if you like, what the the current year has looked like and what I would like to get done in the in the new year. And the theme of my life when it comes to leadership is this: how are we using our brands of faith to become and to provide solutions to the things that we are complaining about?
That's so good. Say that again. If you can, I want you to say that one more time.
Okay. So, how are we using our brands of faith to become and to provide solutions to the things that we are complaining about?
I like the solutions. Come on, talk to me.
So, it is not enough to complain about something, because that is just something that is so easy to do. But when you have to look at yourself and say, what is my brand of faith? Okay. And that could be based on what you believe in. It could be in what you have come to know as 100% why you are in this world to do. Okay. And so if you cannot use any of those to provide and to become the solutions to the things that we are complaining about, then you need to keep silent or move out of the way and let those who know what it is that they can do deliver the solutions to the things that we are complaining about.
Hmm. And is there a challenge or concern or crises that you have near and dear to your heart that you see solutions to satisfy? What's passionate there?
So,
And anything around the family that you can share.
sure. So, like you mentioned, for me, I see that there are nine pillars in every society, every nation, right? So, that is government, education, health, business, faith, arts and culture, sports and entertainment, family, and media. Family is one of the pillars that has been neglected in so many ways. And we need to begin to come to the place where we say, it is time for you and I to begin to look at what are those parts that we have absolutely neglected and said that someone else needs to needs to either solve, or what parts can we now begin to say this is mine to get done. Okay. So if you like, 2020 has shown us that in a big way, because whereas parents would be up every day and say, time for you to go and eat, get out the door, go to your lessons. Now you couldn't say that. Now you have got to be a part of what is going on in your little ones' lives for almost 8 hours of the day. And that has been a difficult thing for a lot of us to get to do, because for a long time that has been something that is done somewhere else. But now, if for nothing else, we have had to say we're either going to be a part of this, or we're just going to make noise about it and call and, say this is not good, this doesn't work, when is this going to end, rather than say maybe it's time for me to look and become a uh, part of my family, outside of what I have, what has been the norm, you know? So things that are passionate to me are developing leaders, because we will always do that. That is never going to have an an expiration date, if you like. Leadership is dynamic. And if you are not preparing yourself to think into, how can I become the solution? How can I provide the solution to what is happening right now? You're going to be left behind. So developing leaders is near and dear to my heart. Youth is something that is also near and dear to my heart, because it is time for us to begin to allow them, or to make room for them to become part of what is being talked about, um, part of what is being um, developed. Otherwise, we are going to miss out on a lot. And so the next 10 years are so, they really matter. And what we are going to do to make the room that we need, and that will also mean changing our minds about the way things have always been done. We have got to, so I make sure that as I lead, I am leading, or I am I am I am interacting with someone that is maybe 10 or maybe even 20 years um, uh, above me, and those that are 10 and maybe 20 years below me. So when it comes to the youth, I I love talking to millennials, because they they see so much that we may have not known how to even um, to uh, talk about. um, they 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 are definitely thinking more about what is the legacy they would like. Some of us never had that in our mindset, you know? And so when it comes to leadership and leading, always look to who am I walking with, and who is it that I am also bringing alongside me.
Mhm.
Then that can become a more balanced dialogue.
Well, really, in this, what you're describing is really a form of discipleship. A lot of times
True.
people,
Yes.
um, they have all these different meanings around discipleship. And what we practice here at Victoria's Family is that discipleship is where one imparts their life into another's life.
Mm-hmm.
And in your case, you just described really what Paul had in Barnabas and what he had in Timothy. In Barnabas, he had that 20, that older person, and
Yeah.
in Timothy, he had that younger person that he was, investing and imparting his life in.
Mm-hmm.
And what we saw from that is really a generational thing. We saw where
Yeah.
generations are being impacted. Here at Victoria's Family, we talk about how do we have impact on generations. A generation in our mind is about 25 years. And we see transitions taking place within that time period of generations.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I want to ask you, because as I look at the generations, there has been a significant shift from the builder generation to boomer to millennial, et cetera. And that shift is quite significant when you look at the worldview. And the things that have crises today are probably different, but yet the same.
Yeah.
But as I look at what you're doing with places like the UN and other places where you're striving to see generations thrive through training and leadership in other ways. Talk to me about the nation as you see it. And I'd love for you to compare maybe the culture that you see here in the US versus the culture that you grew up in. And maybe are there some principles that carry over that really are the same, but yet, and then what are some things culturally that's totally different in terms of family and raising families in the US versus over in Kenya, for example, or Africa? But I'd love to just get your perspective on the nation and where you see things today, and where does the UN, as you work with nations around the world, what is the UN seeing? So just kind of give me this idea of where you think things are, the differences you see in the nations, and what do you see the UN or the nations being able to move forward to impact the next generations?
So
Gave
you
you a
have
lot to think
asked
about.
me,
I gave you a lot to
yeah.
think about. Those are about
So
4 or 5 podcasts right there.
so I have only lived in the US for 6 years now. So I don't know if my perspective on what is happening here in this nation, I am still trying to wrap my head around it.
Just give me the little
I,
you know. 6 years is
right.
good.
So I lived in the UK for 16 years. Okay. And something that I found very different when I got here was the lack of caring for the older generation. In the UK, anybody above 65, for example, um, they are looked after for the most part. Okay, so I'm not going to say that they do everything, really perfectly. But there are so many things that they don't have to think about that I feel here. It it was just the one of those things that I was like, wow, they don't really have that care for them, you know. Um so that was one of the things here. The other thing here that really amazed me is just the, and I don't know if it's okay to say this, but just how the racism that is here, that to me has been very, very surprising that it would, that it is there. Like I to so I come from, Kenya was colonized by the British. Okay, we gained independence in 1963. So in some scenarios that I have experienced here in the US, it's almost like we're done with that. Like, like I come to it and I'm like, this just doesn't make sense. So that is one of the things. One of the great things that I like about the US is just the possibilities that are there if you really maximize your time, your talent, if you like. There are no limits. And so now let's talk about the United Nations. I think everybody should begin to familiarize themselves with the UN 2030 sustainable development, uh, the UN 2030 SDGs, because those are 17 of them, and they have got one for health, they've got one for the family, the youth, the environment, business. And I think that you need to know what over 190 nations have literally signed up to deliver in 2030. So important, because you need to begin to lend your voice to those things that are going to to um to have a lasting impact on your life. So the president of Rwanda, President Paul Kagame, said this. He said, "You should never let anyone who does not look like you make decisions about you. Sit at that decision making table, because then we will complain less, act more." You know, so that's why I don't take lightly that I get to, and I have to say that I get to sit in these different rooms. And I know that I am there because I need to begin to talk about the mind of the Father. That is what is lacking. And so if each one who is listening can do that, look within yourself. What is it that is in you that you can begin to develop, so that you can find yourself at these decision making conversations that will turn your life around.
You know, that's powerful what you just said, because we talk about no nation can rise beyond its spiritual condition,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the home. And it
Yeah,
starts in the home, we believe, supported by church and so many other things, but it has to start in the home. That's where we think there's been some loss. One,
absolutely.
one of the challenges is that 65% of parents, Christian-based parents, don't feel adequate to share their faith and impart that to their children. So we're here to help with that.
Okay.
I want to take this a little further in terms of the UN, um, and being around the table, because I'm not sure how many uh, people are around the table and the conversations that's being had. But you're around the table now. You're
Mm-hmm.
starting to be around the table.
Yeah.
Um, are there some principles or some key things that you've talked about, faith and some other things, some key principles that you see as you go now around the table to solve some of these issues?
Mm-hmm.
Um, anything around family that you see leadership needs to be focused in on to move nations forward and strengthen their nation? Any particular initiatives, any thoughts, or are there other leadership opportunities that you see are so necessary right now to move our nations forward?
I think that we need to recognize that the family is the foundation of where our lives are developed, where our lives are are moved into what God has destined for us. Um, I go to I go into these rooms with a couple of things. The first one is Jeremiah 1 5 to 5, 6, 7, and 8, right? And this is absolutely true for everyone. God says, before I shaped you in your mother's womb, I knew all about you. That alone got me thinking. When you shape something, is because you want it to be in a particular way. So if we even take 2020, okay, when God shaped us in our mother's womb, if you're alive today listening in, God knew all about 2020. And He made you, shaped you so that you would get to this point in time. December 2020 is when we're recording this. I don't know when it's going to air, but I'm going to use this present time. Okay. So it it makes you also recognize that a lot of lives have been lost in 2020. But God so shaped you not to be one of those lives that was lost. Then you go back to, He said, I know all about you. I don't know everything about myself, but God knows all about me, what I am today, what I have been, and what I will be that I don't know yet. He knows all about that. And He took the time to shape me for what I know and what I don't know. Right? Then verse 6, we see the humanness of the prophet Jeremiah, okay? And he says, but I am only a boy. I don't know anything. And we all get to that place. We have all said it. And so I want us to be mindful about those times in our lives where we say, but I don't know much about this. That word, when he uses the word, I am just a boy, that is to show I don't have any experience at all. And we all say that. But I was so moved by just how the Father then came in and said, don't say you are just a boy. I will tell you where to go and you will go. I will tell you what to say and you will say it. I will be right there with you, looking after you. God's law. So it is His law to do all of these things. And He says one thing, just do not be afraid of a soul. So when it comes to anything, be it in government, in education, in healthcare, business, in faith, arts and culture, sports and entertainment, family, media, family is what we're talking about. No parent has a manual on what they should do. you have to learn as you you are parenting, you know. So let us let us let us not say that, but I don't know what to do. Let us lean into what God said. I will tell you where to go, and you will go. I will tell you what to say, and you will say it, right? I will be right there with you, looking after everything that you need. So we might not know everything, but we know something. We know what we don't like. We know what we want to see. So let us lean into and seek Him and ask, where where do you need me to go? What would you have me say? Who am I here for?
Mm.
What is this here to develop in me?
Mm.
So that's what I have used for the past 12 months now. I can't believe it's been 12 months to go into this um into into becoming a United Nations ambassador, not knowing what that looks like, but knowing that I I have what I need inside me. And I know that what I don't know, God has said, it is my law. I will tell you what to say. So don't even worry about that.
Mm.
I will tell you where to I will tell you where you must go, and you will also go. Also, where you must not go.
Well, Diana, here's what I want to do. And we didn't rehearse this, so just don't put you on the spot, but I think you can land it.
Okay, it's one
You have
thing to think.
had
Let's see.
you've had a tremendous life. We all have a journey. We have a story to tell.
Mhm.
And each of us have a very unique story to tell.
Yeah.
Um, take anywhere in that journey that you'd like to take us or like to start. And think about some of those principles you just shared and others. And tell us a story that describes a young girl who started as you started, moved through life, has taken on a journey of UK, US, and now Ambassador UN. And give us just one word of encouragement in
Mhm.
your story. So share a story and give us a word of encouragement as we look at a nation that's going through probably one of the most dramatic pandemics that this nation has ever seen. As of today, over 300,000 deaths due to a virus. But yet we still have hope, and we still should have this everlasting hope and joy and faith and so forth that our faith takes us to. Take us through a story in your life that describe all those things, if you would, and then encourage the listeners today to keep going, to keep standing, to keep being heard. Let me just give you the last word on the mic.
This is this is gonna be a long word because wow, my life has been turns and turns. So I think for me, growing up in a family, um, me having a severe speech impediment that no one knew what to do. I didn't know anyone else that had the same thing. And so I had moments where I was like, God, why did you make me? I mean, it, it was so bad I couldn't even say my name. And this was up until I was 26. And so I look back now and I thank God that he did not listen to some of the things I had said and even some of the sad prayers that I had raised up to him. That he kept to what he said. I shaped you. I know all about you. And he could then see me here now. That to me is what is amazing to me. And so wherever you are, wherever you find yourself in life, fight for what God has put inside of you. One thing I will say, one of the things that I have learned is, number one, that the process doesn't change, the perspective does. Okay. So the way I saw myself then, I didn't know is not the way that I see myself now. I would say on your life's journey, celebrate every moment. Because sometimes the destination doesn't look like what we think. So it is so important to make the time, celebrate every moment, whether it is a big win or a small one. Celebrate each moment. And then you mentioned the lives that have been lost. But I think God is calling us to change our minds about this and begin to celebrate life. Celebrate the lives that are here, your life, my life. Celebrate life, because when you begin to do that, Jesus said something to his disciples in, I think, John chapter 9 or chapter 3. He said, while it is yet day, let us continue to work, because night is going to be coming. So those who know that night is going to come, they manage the day in a very different way. Because nighttime, you cannot do what you could do while it is in the day, right? So those who know that night is going to come manage the day in a very different way. Don't let any day come and take you by surprise, just the way 2020 did. Like, no one could have thought of it, right? So with everything that you are putting together for next year, take the time to think of, how can I do this in a different way? Because then nothing will ever come and um, surprise you to the point that you are absolutely shocked. Okay. Um, if I had to give advice to my younger self, it would be, live each day to the maximum. Don't even think about the next day.
I think I want to stop there. And one, thank you for your story. Thank you for your transparency and authenticity.
Mhm.
And thank you for your humility. And for those who's listening, I think the takeaway is live each day as though it's your last, but enjoy it.
Yeah.
And remember that people who are watching you, your children who are watching you, and you're modeling this behavior to them, what they're learning from you today will impact their life some 20 years from today.
Mhm.
I'd like to thank my special guest today. Thank you for those words of encouragement. And I look forward to our continued work together as we walk together to see this nation in a stronger, healthier place. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Doctor. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, doctor.